So welcome everyone to the next Keptn developer meeting. For today, I'm very happy to have one of my friends here, Sergio, and he is going to present his Keptn-in-a-box automation. So he has done a lot of automation with Keptn, and to make it easier to use Keptn in a box, to use Keptn kind of outside of the box, to have a lot of automation, to spin up the cluster, to install applications on it, to instrument the applications already. With monitoring, to provide all the dashboards, to provide an environment. I was really amazed when I saw this the first time. I'm still amazed already with this nice overview, which is presented then in this which is the presentation layer of the demo, I would say. But before we are jumping into the demo, just as a heads up, we have a couple of new things coming up in the next Keptn releases, and there is a new blog post out there. So make sure to check out medium.com/Keptn, and you will find the new blog post on all the new features that are coming with the next release with Keptn, which will be 0.7. That's the next major release, and we already have a couple of sneak preview out. So make sure to check this out. But for today, we're going to jump into this demo. And for this, I think it's easier, Sergio, if you share your screen, and I will stop my screen sharing here. For all the folks that are joining, feel free to ask questions via our Q&A feature. And yeah, I will then.
Oh, let me just share a portion of my screen. So let me know, is the size okay? Can you read good?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so we put the browser like this size. Okay, so let's start. Let's put this. So hi everyone, my name is Sergio. I'm a sales engineer in Dynatrace, working in the marketing in EMEA. So here's my information, my Twitter, email, and GitHub if you have any question regarding Dynatrace or Keptn. Well, Keptn, we have these guys. Dynatrace, of course, I would like to help you, right? So what is Keptn-in-a-box? Well, the idea actually came from Andy. Keptn-in-a-box is basically a bash file, right? But in other words, or fancy words, you can call it is the automation of putting a single node Kubernetes cluster and pack Keptn in it and everything you need to deploy, test apps, have performance as a self-service, have Dynatrace in it and all that, right? That's the project. It's in the Keptn Sandbox, right? So this file is programmed in a modular way, so you can, with enabling flags, set up everything that you want, right? So how does it work? So inside this box is just a plain Ubuntu image, right? So you take an Ubuntu image, you can have a background file, or you can have it in your computer. And by running this file, it will set everything up for you. It will set up even Docker, so you can build your own apps. It will set micro Kubernetes. It's a certified Kubernetes release from Ubuntu. I really like them, and I really like how it's set up. So you can change Kubernetes version for 14 to 15 to 16 in a couple of seconds, literally. The bash file puts Istio, the newest Istio. You have Helm. It has an Nginx ingress gateway. I'm going to explain why. It even has a cert manager. We can deploy a cert manager, so all your endpoints are with HTTPS valid, right? Why? Because when I do workshops, or especially with customers in corporations where they have high security standards, you cannot access anything with plain HTTP. It must be with a valid certificate. So this way, it's not a problem to have even a remote session, a remote workshop with a valid HTTPS certificate. And yet all that happens automatically, right? It will set up the one agent ActiveGate Kubernetes cluster monitoring. We have this new feature where we can monitor all your cloud apps and get all the events, the Kubernetes events, all that in Dynatrace and put it into the AI, right? So that's actually really cool. So how does it work? In a simplified view, in a technical view, important to show before I start with the automation. We have an Nginx ingress. So basically, that's what we're going to use. That's the entry point. where we have port 80 and port 443. And through the Nginx, we're going to route all the traffic to Istio. Because normally when you have Istio, it will connect to the cloud controller. You can look at the right side. And the cloud controller would give you an IP of AWS or Google, whatever you have it, right? But since we're using resources effectively, meaning we have only one single node cluster, one machine, or your VM, what we use is like the IP, the public IP of your machine. With the Nginx ingress, we're going to make a mapping to all the services, right? So just by mapping the ingress gateway, that's going to do the mapping later for all the apps that you deploy with Keptn. So you have all the stages and everything, and just with a magic domain, meaning you put the IP and the bash file does that, right? So it will get the public IP, and with a magic domain, nip.io, you can then later resolve all the subdomains, right? For example, in Keptn, you have Keptn.api, well, api.keptn for getting to the API. We're exposing also the Kubernetes API, so you can communicate. I mean, maybe you have seen this image. This is an image of Kubernetes. So in a single node Kubernetes cluster, you have the worker and the master inside of it, and everything is managed by snapd. So normally the most important components is the proxy, kubelet, and API server. So with an Nginx ingress, you will route the traffic, well, actually, yeah, to the API server and then to the proxy. Sorry, this image is wrong. And then everything will happen inside. What I use is an RTA. Well, I call it RTA. It's a Python program, and you see Keptn-in-a-box is on the left side, because for doing workshops, I want to have everything automated. So with just a Python file and a CSV file, I can put 50 emails and developers or customers, and I run it, and automatically I will spin up all the instances. I will create Dynatrace tenants and bound everything together. So the attendees just get into the machine and they have everything already set up. Okay, so let's start. So this is the file. So let's just kick the program. This is my Visual Studio, right? So this is just my CSV file. I just added 2 new lines, okay? So I haven't, nothing has been created, everything will just run. So I type py-rta validate. It's showing me my flags. So these are the different flags we're gonna create. So we're gonna create the Dynatrace tenant user group. The Keptn-in-a-box is here. Create EC2 instance, because the bash file is optimized to run for root as a user data. User data is a concept in AWS. When you spin an image, you can put a bash file and it will then set it up for you. So that's what we're gonna do. And then we get the IP, so we can create dashboards and everything in Dynatrace, right? So validate, and then we can see here, we're going to run the action for developer 1 and developer 2. Create. So now for developer 1, you see different actions, create tenant. So we're going to create a Dynatrace environment for this user. We're going to create a user group. So this guy will get an email, can log into Dynatrace, has his Keptn dashboard and everything in it. We create the instance. You can see this is the instance ID, and this is the IP, right, of AWS. And then after we fetch the IP, we put it into Dynatrace in some dashboard, so the user can access to the dashboard, have access to the machine, right? So we created just 2, and just to show you that it doesn't work for 1, it can work also for 50 or 400, doesn't matter, right? So
okay, so I'm just curious. So at this point, you have already created the machines with the Ubuntu image, and the machines kind of set themselves up. They will be like set up themselves, so you don't have to wait in the script because it's in the user data. And
exactly. So right now it's working for me. Now, exactly. So now I can go drink a coffee, do whatever I want, and now everything, the bash file is doing everything for me, right? So, for example, and I can log in and we can see the script running. So let's copy the second one, for example, the developer 2, right? I can make SSH to this machine, right? And you can see I can already log in. So now I'm inside the machine. Let's just make this terminal a bit bigger, right? I'm inside the machine. Plus F. If it's too small to read, let me know so I can make it a bit bigger.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the script. It's already running for us, right? So let's look at the beginning. It says init installation on the day by root. Okay. Setting up micro Kubernetes. So by the way, it says the app does not have a CLI interface. Why? Because it's not with an it doesn't have a terminal, right? So the bash file is optimized for not having a terminal. So there are no questions to answer. So like, you know, when you install Keptn, you have to say yes for the domain. Here we're passing the domain and say yes, install it on the file itself. So we can go all the file and see everything that is going to install. All this installation is controlled by control flags. So in here you can see enable DNS, storage, and nginx ingress. So all the flags are by default true, but you can control them, right? So let's see. Right now, it just finished and it enabled the Kubernetes dashboard. So the Kubernetes dashboard is also enabled and exposed. Why? Because for educational purposes, you can show the out-of-the-box functionality and as well all the linkage to Dynatrace, right? So we'll let it work for us. And in the meantime, I explained a little bit the repository, right? So in what the bash file does, and if there is a question, just ask, please.
You know, I just want to point out that basically it's already on the Keptn Sandbox. So if you guys want to check it out yourself, if you want to clone it, if you want to play with it, maybe Sergio will first walk us through, and then you can just take it and use it, and yeah, exactly. Let us know what you think. One question, because it just came to my mind. Is there any significant difference between micro Kubernetes and Minikube, and that there are different options out there, and you decided to go with micro Kubernetes? Is there any background behind it?
For me, it's just, well, micro Kubernetes is very, very lightweight, right? So just, I have not played along a lot with Minikube. There is a problem with Minikube having the full stack agent, right? Some binary problem that was a long time ago. I haven't tried again. So for me, it was just the way to go, just to go with micro Kubernetes, because micro Kubernetes, I mean, has Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is an operating system that has no problems with the full stack and the operator. The operator is something in Dynatrace where we can monitor clusters of Kubernetes clusters with an operator SDK. So we roll out the Dynatrace One agent automatically, meaning we can monitor all the pods, all your workloads automatically. And for me, that was the main reason to have micro Kubernetes.
From my side, so okay, for Keptn itself, for the development, Minikube is fine if you develop with it. As soon as you want to have a production setup, although Minikube is definitely not the way to go. For instance, Minikube will have problems with persistent volumes, and you shouldn't use it for that. Micro Kubernetes, on the other side, is really meant to actually have a production deployment, like it says here, autonomous low ops Kubernetes. That's basically what it is. Also good for IoT, but you can use it on any virtual machine. It just works.
Exactly, and I have not had any problem with micro Kubernetes, to be honest. I can install any app, like with so even Cert Manager, Istio, all these functionalities. I have not had any problems, right? So these guys are doing a really good job, to be honest. Awesome. So the bash script in a nutshell, what it will do. This is easier to read than the log file, so let me just short explain. It will update it, like app update. Then it will install Docker. Why? Because then you can build your own apps, right? Like Docker build, Docker run, all that. It will start micro Kubernetes. It's you will not notice a difference between Kubernetes and micro. You have kubectl, and you can do all the kubectl commands. You have even auto completion of kubectl, so you can navigate through all the namespaces and pods. It will, at the end, we're going to create a user. Why? Because, and this is with parameters. So you can give access to someone else. So what I did now, I access my machine with my pen file, and I'm gonna not give anyone my pen file. But I'm creating a new user for all these guys that I give a workshop, so they can access it with a password, right? So I can set up the user and password for Mike or whatever, so he can access with his password or the password I set, right? And he will have everything set up. We install Istio, Helm. We use the public IP with a magic domain, meaning NIP.io. This way, with only 2 ports, the port 80 and 443, we can have expose as many services as we want, right? Like Keptn does it. You have the Keptn API, you have the bridge. If you want to expose it, the applications in different namespaces, everything, right? So it will install the one agent as well. Why? Because we want everything to have to be monitored so we can see what is happening in there. It will deploy Unleash, so you can, there is this tutorial with Keptn that you can activate feature flags. It will onboard the Sockshop app, right? So that's if you want to onboard it or not, and you can control all that with the flags. There is a cartlet generator also for the demo, so you have always traffic to all the different stages. It will have a teaser, the teaser that we show you, right? Then it will create valid certificates with Let's Encrypt and Cert Manager. Cert Manager is a package that can create with Let's Encrypt, will create certificates and validate the endpoints that you want, right? And that's it. So this is the bash file. We're going to take a look at it now. Prerequisites, only to have an Ubuntu image. Optional, of course, if you have a Dynatrace tenant, is really good because you can have it monitored right away. You don't have to configure anything. You just put the URL and the tokens. That's it. If you have an AWS account, it's even better. Why? Because there is this program, the REST tenant automation that I just quick showed, the one that I used. Because even to create an instance, you have to, let me just show what you have to do. In AWS, you have to log in, click on launch, select it, select the size, and imagine to do it for 10 guys, 20, 50, right? So this way you can just automate it, run it, you're done with your work, you can stop it or destroy it, and you're not paying anything, right? I mean, just for what you used. Okay. So
just one question because we got a couple of questions in, and one is just we can answer this right away here, I guess. If you know if there is any license for micro Kubernetes, or if you can just use it out of the box.
Not a license. This open source. I believe it's open source. Yeah, not a license at all. It's Ubuntu, made from Ubuntu. It's like the same.
Okay, cool. And just for clarification, so the Python script you showed us in the beginning, that's the one that is really creating all those instances in the AWS cloud. And the bash script here we are taking a look at, we can use it also to work on other, like also for Google or...
exactly. So this script, exactly. So this script, I can run it in my VirtualBox, in Google, in anywhere, right? The only thing, it is optimized to run as root, because as user data, it runs as root, right? And it's optimized to run for Ubuntu. Why Ubuntu? Because you have Snap. So the way to install micro Kubernetes is just snap install micro, and that's it, right? So actually we can take a look at the installation. Okay, let me start. Here, we're everything putting into the log file. So that's why we can see on the, while the script is running, all the actions. And these are the flags. So you put in here, this is the Ubuntu user, right? Normally, but if you change it, then you can change it. And this is for the instance. So the instances that I'm creating, the user will be Dynatrace and the password Dynatrace. I can change that, of course, because not the most secure password at all. These variables, my Python program put it automatically because it created a tenant that it was not existing. It created, got the tokens and put those variables in here. That's the only thing my Python did. Well, along with creating the tenant and running the instance, right? So, and all these flags is what you can then set up. To set up, the only one as false is verbose mode. All the others are set to true. install Docker, micro, set up some aliases. I can show you some aliases that help me a lot to work with kubectl and VI. The magic domain, enable the dashboard, enable the registry. So you have a box with your own registry. So that means you can build your own images and push them to Keptn with their Helm charts so they can go the pipeline without having to use Docker IO or something, right? Which is really cool. Then it will install Cert Manager, Helm, Keptn. We are cloning the examples of Keptn, so you can do the tutorials. It's cloning the resources of the Keptn-in-a-box because there are some YAML files, so you can take a look at it. So how we are exposing with the Nginx ingress, making the mapping to Istio and to at the end to the Keptn services, right? Dynatrace configuration. We're storing the credentials in a file. We're configuring the monitoring, configuring ActiveGate. We're exposing the bridge, deploying the teaser is just the pod that we're putting at the main domain, right? And that's it. And then here are all the actions that start will start to work. The definition of the action is at the end of the file, right? Because they're not going to run. They're going to run here. This is the definition of the action, and this is how all the file will run, right? So if I take a look back to the tenant, so by the way, and then let me just show the file. Let me just make it a bit bigger. The CSV file shall be updated. So in here, I have the access to the tenant. So if I'm developer one, I got an email, then I go to my Dynatrace tenant, right? I access it. Well, now I'm as admin, but I will get the access. If the program will create only access for this user for his own tenant. As you can see, this is the Keptn dashboard. It's created by Keptn when you configure monitoring with Dynatrace, but the application also created their own dashboard, right? Because the Python program has a drag and drop functionality with different folders. So you can drag and drop dashboards, drag and drop request attributes, for example, request attributes for the load test integration. Everything is already set up, right, for creating load test and analyzing the load test. So this dashboard is also pre-configured. Me as developer one, I can see, oh, this is my user into this IP. So I can access this IP right now with shell, right? I have links to my application. So this is the link of Keptn-in-a-box. There it is right now. It's already deployed, right? There it is a link to the pipeline. So you can see it's still deploying. So I can see the development is already there. Staging is there. Production, it will be there. To look at that, then we can take a look at the Keptn bridge. So as you can see, we're using the same IP with different subdomains, right? So in the sock shop, these are the stages. In the cards, then we can see, we're already deploying one the configuration change of the first version, right? And you can see in the staging, we're already finished with the test, right? It's taking the SLI retrieval, gonna make the evaluation, and then push to the next stage, to the production, right?
That's pretty awesome. I would be interested, how are you doing the automation of the deployment of the application? So are you using the Keptn CLI or are you using the Keptn API to start the actual deployment of the cards microservice? And
actually, it's both, because the bash script, it's calling Keptn, and the Keptn CLI is then doing the REST API at the end, right? So if I log in to the machine, so now let's log in, for example, as the user, it will be Dynatrace at this one. So if I take just a plain bash, right? So let's just do SSH Dynatrace at, then it's 3, 8. This is just the IP, just in a fancy slash, because it's the same as having a dot. I just find with slashes looks a bit nicer. To meet.io. So, right. The bash file also activates the login via SSH, because normally it is not set up. But in this case, we do it. Why? Because we want our users to. So I can qctl, and I can see I'm already deploying. This is already everything deployed, right? Keptn, Cert Manager, and the stock shop. You can see the stock shop is there, and it's already started. Yeah, you have as well Keptn.
Awesome.
Exactly. Here, Keptn, and Keptn is already even configured, because if I do status, it says, hey, I'm already configured through Keptn API. And really, what is also really cool is, I don't know, always a big problem if you have developer machine are certificates, if you want to work with APIs and stuff. Well, the idea is to have this box, and then you can set it up, put it in your corporation, and then make performance as a service. Dynatrace and Andy has a really cool service where you can make performance to any app reachable from this machine, right? So let's imagine you have a machine where WebLogic or something having performance problems, spin this up, put the service of Andy, and you can make a load test to that machine, right? And the API, we're exposing Keptn API and as well Kubernetes API with the valid endpoint. To show you that if everything worked fine, this is not secure, right? Because it's plain HTTP. But if we do HTTPS, there you go, right? You see, connection is secure because the cert manager create a valid certificate during the installation.
So, and the cert manager is doing this for the Nginx ingress, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see a question, is it possible to skip? Yes, it is possible to skip the cert manager. The flags to control that will be, let me just go. There are two flags. It is cert manager install. So what this will do is just like the install with via kubectl, and the enable is the setting up the engine, the ingress with the cluster issuer, right? It's just overwriting with the cluster issuer. That's it. So if you put this both to false, you have everything as I just showed without cert manager.
Cool. Awesome. We got a couple of more. So that was actually a question that you already answered. Then we got a couple of more questions around the creation of the dashboards. And if I understand it correctly, so there are two different approaches here. One approach is when you install Keptn and you do the configure monitoring with Keptn, then you get the dashboards out of the box that is Keptn, which is provided by Keptn, like the dashboard for SockShop. And you could have the same for Unleash if you're also doing Unleash on the server. But here we can only see this one because maybe Unleash is not yet deployed. I think you'll first go through the SockShop and then maybe afterwards you deploy Unleash. There are other dashboards that you are creating inside your bash script, right?
Yes, not on the bash. The bash will not set dashboard. The dashboard are set up via the Python program, the RTA-Y, because because there is where I control. If I show the image, let me just go back to the PowerPoint. This is the RTA, right? Because in Keptn, I'm just inside the Ubuntu image, right? But in the RTA is where I have the whole visibility of what is happening. So one thing is just spinning the image, but all the other actions is setting up the environment properly. And for example, you see here on the right side, set up application rules, like best practices, like service renaming, process group renaming. So all my microservices have proper naming, right? Dashboards as well, management zones. So you can set up all of that as well. Right, because this program, I not only use it for Keptn workshops, but also for other kind of workshops, right? So you can have different managed zones that independence of Kubernetes and stuff like that.
Right. Cool, awesome. Can we go back to your script? And I would be interested also if you show us how you do the automation to do the deployment and start the Keptn workflow. You do this. You said you do this by API, sorry, by the CLI, right?
Yes. So for example, we can just scroll down. These are some aliases right? Which I find really cool. So actually, we have time. Let me just tell you this BAML, somewhere navigating in the internet, I found out this BAML and BSON are really cool aliases for all of you that work a lot with CLI, because let me just show you what they do, right? Here. So kubectl get pod, right? For example, this load generation, right? This is a pod that generates load for the cards for the different stages, right? So get pod and then cards, right? If you do normally this -o YAML that you do a lot, but then it's quite difficult to read, right? But then you can do pipe BAML, and this way I'm gonna have the YAML file in a readable format. I'm piping through VI, and I let VI know that this is YAML, so I can have the proper syntax. The same with
cool.
Yeah, it's cool, right? The same with JSON. If we say, oh, this is JSON, you know, you're always having problem trying to read JSON without colors, but you do it like this, and then you say VSON for VI JSON, and then you can read it. And the cool thing, you have it in cache, so now I can say write to a proper file, and I write it to a file. Then edit, kubectl apply, and you're done.
That's pretty cool.
Yes. So let me just go back. Oh, sorry. Go back to the file. Yes. So this is the installation of micro Kubernetes. So as you can see, this is the plan. This is the whole installation. Snap install micro, right? Then we're putting privilege mode because the full stack agent runs the privilege mode, right? So you can monitor all the pods in the cluster, right? So some maintenance like ptable, so to make sure everything can connect. kubectl auto-completion, the Keptn commands. So this is third manager. This is the load generation. Let me just
a quick question, if I may interrupt. Did I see this right? There's ActiveGate installed as well?
Yes, I'm going to show that as well. It's already even configured. It's not only installed, it's configured with the whole workloads and cloud. So, but let me just show, this is the install. This is the teaser, right? Deploy homepage. This is the configuration of one agent via Keptn, right? Because we want to have like a neat integration with Keptn. I believe it's pretty much, here it is. So this is just the onboarding of the cards, right? So we go cd examples because we clone the examples, and then we do a bash into the shell file, right? And this shell file has a Keptn command.
Okay.
Right? So these are just the Keptn commands from the tutorials. So for all of you that didn't say, hey, what is the shell doing? Well, if you go to the Keptn-in-a-box resources, which is pretty much, Keptn-in-a-box here, right? So everything that the file needs is in the resources, right? For Dynatrace, exposing the home page, even the Docker file. So you say, like, if you like, for example, this page where, let me just click to the page. This Keptn-in-a-box, if you like it, you have the whole source there. It's in here. HTML, Docker file, and how we build it, right? So
that's pretty cool. And we can also see that it's already possible to do a lot of automation around Keptn because we everything is provided for you to use, right? There is no need for interacting during the whole setup of the Keptn-in-a-box. You only define everything in the beginning, and then you run the script, and you're done, and you have everything you're showing us.
Exactly. So actually, what I do here, I stop by onboarding the first image. By the way, and I'm setting as well the quality gate already. So I'm pushing already through a quality gate, right? But if I say, okay, in this workshop, I want to show even from the beginning, so I just put this to false. So everybody does the onboarding from the beginning. But if you imagine how much time does it take you for set up this manually, like install, download, make a typo, you have a problem. So this is why the automation is so important.
Cool, awesome. So we got more questions coming in for you. One question is there any possibility to use some other DNS instead of nip.io? I know that Keptn
Yes.
out of the box uses xip.io.
Exactly.
And then you are using nip.io, but is there any possibility to configure this?
Yes, it is. Well, there is not a way. I mean, we should. It's not difficult to pass a domain, right? Because it's almost there. I just haven't done it in a way to set your own domain, but it's already there. So let me just show you. By the way, this is a Kubernetes dashboard already getting information from the active gate, right? But I'm gonna come back to this. So you can see the running pods and all the active gate, the cluster monitoring, the CPU, the cores, memory, and these are the limits of the Kubernetes cluster. So if I go back to the shell file, let me just go at the top. So you will see setup magic domain public IP, right? So if I go to this one, it is here, setup magic domain. So what I do is pretty much get the public IP with a curl, right? And then just map it to the nip.io. Why I do use nip.io? Because I found it's not very so common, and used like zip.io because I used to use zip.io, but you have problems, especially when people in North America wakes up, then you will have availability problems with the DNS resolution. And nip.io, in the Perform event that we had in Vegas this year, I had 200 instances or something like that, and none of them had an issue.
Cool. And if you want to use your own, then you can just
absolutely. Absolutely.
So this would be the line where you change it to your own domain if you're having
exactly. So the idea will be just to put to modify the script and put the domain here, right? So you can, as tenant token, API token, you for example put domain equals, and then you pass the domain to all the because the way it works actually, if you set up the ingress, right, you will see that the domain is passed along. For example, here, expose Istio, and we're passing the domain, right? So this has nothing to do with nip.io.
Cool. And also, I know you've seen it, but we've also integrated the command to configure the domain in the Keptn CLI.
Exactly. That's really cool, because by having that, it allows you to have, because Keptn does it right. It looks at for default, it looks at the IP of the load balancer, right? The load balancer, let me just show you, which is, you have your ingress gateway from Istio, and the load balancer, the cloud controller on the right side, will give you that IP. But if you have this micro Kubernetes, you don't have a cloud controller. You will be able to configure it, but I think it's a mess, and it's really, I mean, then why would you have a micro Kubernetes? Then you can have a full-blown Kubernetes cluster, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yes. And the active gate, for example, in here, you can see Kubernetes integration, and there is the cluster. API Kubernetes, right? So through this endpoint, via HTTPS, we are monitoring already the setup. And this happens automatically. I can switch now to the other environment, so you can see, for example, if I look at the CSV file, this was developer 1. Let's take a look at developer 2. Right? And developer 2 will have the same. So this is the Keptn dashboard of developer 2, and there it is. Hello, developer 2, welcome to your Kubernetes cluster. Right? So, yes. So
that's pretty cool. And you could also, because there are more questions coming in, so you could also use this. And I think you explained it already, but you can use this on a plain Ubuntu machine, which is running maybe on your local machine, if you're spinning up a VM, or you can use it in the cloud, and it will work both ways.
Exactly. So I have, there's an engineer in DACH, Steve, I don't know if he's in the meeting. He uses a vagrant file. So with a vagrant file, he puts this shell file in a vagrant, and he actually parameterized the domain, because if he does curl if config, he's gonna get the IP of the home router, right? So he puts his 192 network address from inside his house, and that's how he has a VM with Keptn full blown, all functionality and everything in there.
Cool. And can we go to the Keptn's bridge once again?
Yes.
Please?
So I click in. This is the bridge of the second one.
Awesome. And just let's check how far we already deployed, because I think we're already running in production.
Yeah, I think it's already done. Test finished, production. Right. So production, here is the evaluation, right?
We already have a quality gate set up here, and we can see the response time was with
264, exactly. Really cool. So I could have added more SLI, because at least I want to put 3 SLOs, right? The response time, failure rate, throughput, right? Because if I have a quality gate, at least I want to have a base. I know that I have no problems, know that I have a response time that is acceptable, and to have throughput, right? To put at least I need to have 1,000 requests. And you can set up, you know, with Keptn, it's just a string, right? That you set up in your YAML files, and that's it. And this string matches the ID of services. In Dynatrace, we have a lot of metrics out of the box that the one agent gets from your services, right? Failure rate, dependencies, all that. So you can put it in here, and you're done with performance as a service.
Awesome. What I also like is I can see that you are upgraded to an early access version of the Keptn's bridge. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, it is. I like the icons.
Which is pretty awesome. I think there is a newer one actually available if you want to upgrade.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I can change that.
Yeah, since you have everything automated, I think for you it's very easy to upgrade.
Just yeah.
Something else I wanted, because we have more questions coming in. So it would be also possible to have the Keptn internal Git repository linked to a GitHub repository, right? Because this is what we are also kind of advocating when you want to know what's really going on inside Keptn, and Keptn is following a GitOps approach. Then when you set up a project and you do Keptn create project, you can link it to a, or you can define a GitHub upstream. So you have, or you basically maybe to Bitbucket or GitLab or GitHub, you can add it. And I would assume you can also add this in your automation file, right?
I don't have a GitHub repository, but I have an image repository. The instance has an automatic instance repository, so you can push your own Docker images, right? So that is enabled by default, I think.
That's nice. And one more thing that you could do is you could have your own Git server running actually with your VM. For instance, Git or Gitea, I don't know what's the correct pronunciation. Is a very lightweight Git server that looks very similar to what GitHub does, but very, very lightweight. You can have that actually installed with your whole script, and then maybe for workshop settings, this is really nice, because all of a sudden you have like everything running in one central piece, and
exactly.
you could even if you have your own container registry, you could even use an air-gapped system if you have to.
Exactly. So the idea is that you have, I mean, the idea for this, I believe, is that you have all the modules. So in here, one question is, how much do you need? Like, well, I said, at least for my test, having it with load is like 2x large, right? With 8 cores and 32 gig of RAM, but it works also with 4 cores or less, depending how much apps and functionality you want to add in it, right? Because another idea is just to improve it, for example, with the cool service of Andy, like the Jenkins service. So in order to have that, we can deploy our own Jenkins server with Jenkins, and then we can validate any application outside of Keptn with the Keptn-in-a-box, right? So there are different use cases that you can tackle with this.
Another question that's coming in, how much storage do you recommend for the Ubuntu box? You already explained the size when it comes to the number of cores and the memory, but is there any limitation on the storage?
If you enable the Docker registry, well, it depends how many images you want to store in there. But if you don't, then with the basic one, I think if you start an image, it will be 8 gigabytes or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I think, well, but if you have the active gate and all that, at least I will say 20 gigs, and that's it. Because then you will have, you need for the one agent, for Keptn, for all that, a bit of storage.
Okay, so you would recommend to increase the default a little bit from 8 to maybe 20, 16 to 20, maybe it would be.
Yes, so let me just check. For example, there is in this file, this is the RTA. So the RTA is also parameterized, right? So for example, this is the definition of the AWS, right? It's a JSON file. And in here, you can modify everything. The PEM image, which image you want to file, which user data. This is the user data, Keptn-in-a-box, right? The image ID, and let's see, for example, tagging, volume size. In here, I have 30, right? Yeah, so everything is parameterized, but I will say as maybe 20, not more than 20. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, really cool, really cool. I think that's great stuff, and it makes it so much easier to have like a workshop environment. I think it's already easy to install Keptn. Everyone should be able to install Keptn just with the CLI, but to set up the whole workshop environment. And I think that's really the purpose of your automation, to set up a working environment.
Keptn is really easy, but you need a Kubernetes cluster, right? And then you have EKS, GKE, and all that, which are really fast and easy to set up, but they're expensive, right? This is not expensive. You don't pay any license, right? So that's for me the most one of the really coolest things, that you can take any Ubuntu image and run your Kubernetes cluster. So you don't need to have a full-blown Kubernetes cluster in order to learn, right?
I love it. It's really great because you have everything set up, and you can just like experience Keptn, work with Keptn, see what it actually is, what the quality gate is. You can you have a hands-on demo, and I think during this live demo, I know we had a lot of questions from the community, but I think like spinning up the instance and having the first versions deployed to the quality gates, I think it maybe took us like 5 or 10 minutes. So it was really fast.
Yeah, there is actually a time. I can tell you exactly how much time it took. So if we do less plus F, it logs the time. So this time it took 9 minutes and 9 seconds with valid certificates and everything set up. So if you disable some stuff, it will be even faster.
That's really cool. And speaking of like making it easier for people to experience Keptn, to learn Keptn, to have a demo environment. So we do have a new home for Keptn content, which is tutorials.keptn.sh. Maybe you can do me a favor and go to, yes.
It's really cool, guys.
So we do have this new home, and we already have a couple of tutorials here from the Keptn core team, but also from the Keptn community. So it's everything in Keptn is open source. So also, of course, this is open source. Everything behind it, it's not magic. It's basically also a markdown file. So you can take your READMEs you already might have for your projects. You can take those READMEs and just add a little bit of meta information to it, so we can generate the tutorials here. So Sergio, I would like to invite you to also write a tutorial on your, take your README and convert it to a tutorial, because I think explaining the steps in this kind of tutorial, and if you click on one of those, and maybe on the Argo one, because it's like brand new, we just on the, or maybe if I request, no, I think I cannot request the remote control, but if you can do me a favor on the right top corner on the screen, if we can go to the Argo CD one, yes, this one. So we can see it's really easy. It's just a couple of steps to work through this, and you will have all the explanations. So I guess we can also use this mechanism for a lot of other tutorials and a lot of content. It's easy to kind of digest the content here and to experience some use cases.
I really like the framework. How is it done?
Yeah, it's so behind the scenes we are using the framework from Google, which is called Code Labs. It's also an open source project, and it makes it very easy to write these kinds of tutorials in the format which makes it hopefully enjoyable and fun for others to walk through these tutorials. Yeah, so this is something we are actively working on. So I would also invite you to work with us to provide this, because I love what you're doing. It makes it so much easier to spin up this cluster and just experience all of those use cases we basically provide. We have seen the whole continuous delivery with the quality gates. We have not seen the automated operations part with self-healing, but I'm just assuming it's also in there because I saw the unleash code.
Yeah, it is in there.
Awesome. So you can, taking Sergio's work, you can really get started within 10 minutes. You have all the installation already. Because if you're getting started setting up your Kubernetes cluster in the cloud, it takes a little bit more time because Kubernetes has to be, like the instance has to be spun up, then Kubernetes has to be ready. You install Keptn, you work through all the examples. You can use Sergio's example. He will walk you like all the automation until you pass the first quality gates, and then you can jump in and maybe deploy a slower version and then see the Keptn quality gates in action. But the groundwork is already done with your great automation.
Exactly, that's the idea, because I want them to learn how to improve the quality, right, and not how to set up, because that you can do another time. But it's like the most important is like, hey, how can I make my apps faster? How can I which SLIs are important, right, and all that. And by having this, you can already start doing your work.
Exactly. And I love what you just said, because it makes it possible to focus on the concepts of SLIs and SLOs and not focusing on the tooling to install something and to pick the right versions of something, but really focusing on SLIs and SLO based quality gates, because that is really one part of Keptn which we want to emphasize and which we want to advocate. Put your you have to have your SLIs and then write your SLOs instead of writing all your API calls and having like custom integrations or like some solutions that are working for one application but not for the other. Base everything upon SLIs and SLOs. You can reuse the quality gates, and that would make it really, really easy for you. Yeah, with your work, it's so easy to get started. So we are already almost
the hour time.
Almost the hour. Yeah, we're almost hitting the hour. So we just checking if we have a couple of more questions. So if there is another question, spinning up a host, which inbound ports do you need to define? If I get the question correct. Are there any ports that have to be defined when you're spinning up?
For the security gate, I mean, you need inbound, right? That's the HTTP and HTTPS because of the curls and the git clone and all that. And outbound, no, inbound. Outbound, you need, of course, the git clone and stuff. I mean, internet connection. And the inbound, just 80 and 22 as a shell, 80 and 443 if you want valid certificates, right? So, for example, this everything is like shown on the in here, right? Everything goes to HTTP or HTTPS into your box and shell.
22 for SSH.
Exactly. So SSH, so you can do the hands-on inside of it. I mean, you have the API Kubernetes exposed, right? So you can configure kubectl from the outside, but you need to get to the machine. So 22, 80, and 443.
Awesome. Really cool. Yeah, so I would really encourage everyone to check this out. Can you again do me a favor and go to GitHub and the Keptn Sandbox, because it's a great collection of projects we have there. Is it already open somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So in the Keptn Sandbox, we are collecting user contributions and contributions from the community, and we already have a couple of them. So there are already more than 20, I think we're getting close to 30 contributions from the community already. And also Sergio's contribution is there. So it's one place where you can find a lot of contributions that you can check out. We have contributions from partners, but also from individuals. Services that you can use, you can add to Keptn. For example, we can see here to make Keptn work with Jenkins, or to make Keptn work with Jira, or a Slack bot to interact with Keptn. All these kind of integrations we already have in the Keptn Sandbox. We also have the Keptn contribution organization, where we already have graduated content that is also listed on the Keptn.sh website. We sometimes already include it into our official documentation, because it's already, as said, graduated content that we know it's used out there by Keptn users, and it has very high adoption. But it's a great place. The Keptn Sandbox is a great place to get started, and also Sergio has put his all his work to the Keptn Sandbox. So make sure to check it out there. Feel free to clone it, actually cloning it and then just execute the shell file. The shell script should be the perfect start, right?
Yeah. Actually, just download it. You only need the shell file, because the shell file will clone then the resources for you.
Yeah. Even better. So it's a really easy way to get started. And thanks for highlighting the sentence. Spend more time innovating and less time configuring.
Exactly. I want to start, because this is our mantra, right? That's why I like Dynatrace. We help companies to spend their time making better software and not troubleshooting, configuring, and all that, right? So that's the whole idea behind this.
Thanks so much for joining today. Thanks also to the community. Thanks for all your questions. If there are any more questions coming in the next minute, I will still take them and pass them to Sergio. We also got great feedback to on your presentation. So thank you so much for sharing all this with us. I think it saves everyone a lot of time that you already put into your project, and so we can save the time and we can spend more time innovating. Thank you for providing this to us. We also put this video on YouTube, so if you're not seeing this live, you might be already on YouTube. And there will be a lot of more content coming out in the next couple of weeks. We are having a lot of other presenters also scheduled, so we are happy to share more and more use cases with Keptn with you. And for today, thank you so much. Please join us also next time next week, or in 2 weeks' time. We will announce it on the Keptn Twitter account, and also join out the Keptn community. We have the Slack channel, we have Twitter, we have our websites, we have the tutorials. So there's a lot of content out there that you can enjoy. And yeah, then have a nice evening. Sergio, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Jürgen.
See you next time.
See you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.